Hey everyone, TV here to finally review the Season 5 finale of The Walking Dead. I'm sorry this video is going up a little late. Work kind of got in the middle of my schedule, so I was not only late in watching the season finale, but also reviewing it, so I apologize for that. But anyways, here I am to finally talk about the season finale, and man, what a way to really deliver on the season finale, because for a moment I was kind of worried that it was going to be a little underwhelming, especially when I was kind of surprised to avoid a vast number of spoilers. In fact, almost anything about the episode when I got onto social media, because when this was airing, I was at Pancho Villas. It's a Mexican restaurant. I was celebrating a friend's birthday, and when I came back, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be as scarce as possible on the interwebs, Twitter, Facebook, all that, to avoid spoilers, because I know that that's going to happen. But I was kind of surprised that nobody really posted anything about the season finale, and that kind of made me think that if people are not going online talking about The Walking Dead, that means it's probably an underwhelming episode, and I was getting kind of scared that the season finale wasn't going to deliver, but for the most part, it did. And one of the things it did wonderfully is bring back Morgan. If you want to really deliver with your season finale, then bring back a character that everybody has been wondering about for some time, and that's Morgan. Morgan finally makes his return ever since, I believe, the mid-season premiere, and man, this was a perfect way to bring him back in the most badass motherfuckingest way possible by having him go all Book of Eli on those guys. And at the same time, this is a character that you've known ever since season 1, outside of Rick's group, because there's people in Rick's group that have been there since day 1, such as Rick himself, Glenn, Carl, but he is the one outside of Rick's group that has been there since season 1, that has helped Rick out when he didn't know what the hell was going on. So to bring him back, and as being that he's practically a very sympathetic character that is very easy to connect with. I mean, even the music plays a very somber note when he appears, letting you know that, oh yeah, this is the guy that you've been missing this whole time. And to make him a really badass character, possibly the next Daryl, that's really awesome. And how he ties in with some of the events that transpire in the season finale is done wonderfully as well. Maybe a tad bit too convenient. I'll talk about that more in depth later on, but still, it was wonderful to see Morgan once again, and so that's some definite plus points for the episode by bringing back Morgan. Now, the overall conceit of the episode is judgment for Rick. What's going to happen with Rick after his huge blowout at the end of last week's episode, and the people of Alexandria deciding by the end of this episode with a little meeting whether or not he's going to have to go, and whether or not this is a safe move for Alexandria. And this kind of almost causes a divide amongst Rick's group. You know, some of them say we really need Alexandria, like Michonne and Glenn, but then there's others who are like, yeah, let's take it. Let's take it for ourselves. Mainly Carol. And that's a really interesting thing that I hope to play out in season 6. And I'm kind of glad they're saving it for season 6, because if they had crammed it in season 5, it would have felt a little bit too much like other things in this episode. But still, I'm interested to see where that goes, and interested to see where Rick's sanity goes from here after the events that happen mainly at the end of this episode, which I'll talk about later on. Now, speaking of Carol, is Carol possibly becoming just a little bit too evil? Is she maybe pushing the envelope just a tad bit too much beyond even what Rick is recommending? I mean, we saw that scene where he's like, yeah, we're gonna take the knives and threaten to slit their throats, and you're kind of second-guessing yourself. Okay, you're joking, right, Rick? I mean, when I say you're joking, I mean you are going to pretend to threaten to slit their throats, but instead I'm really hoping you're doing that, because I'm getting scared that you might be for real. However, with Carol, I feel like she's for real in every sense of the word, especially in this scene. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't sympathizing for Pete. If she had killed Pete, that would have been actually a rather sustainable service. But still, can Carol be just a little bit too much for the rest of the group? Can she be the one who can be like the instigator of the group, who's like, hey, you know, we gotta do this, we gotta do the worst so that we can be at our best and not become weak, which is starting to get to some other characters that I'll also talk about, because there's so much to digest in this finale, because quite an awful lot of stuff happened, mainly character-wise. But Carol could be that instigator amongst the group that says, yeah, kill, because I'm actually willing to do it at this point. And again, I must reiterate how fascinating of an arc she has taken from the very first season, where she was very weak and feeble, to the person that she is now. And this scene just, another stepping stone, another brick in that structure that is this new character of Carol. And what a great scene it was with that final line from her. I want that dish clean when I get it back. It was perfect. It's just perfect Carol. Now, among continuing their investigations from last week's episode, Daryl and Aaron find this man wearing a red poncho and follow him to this warehouse that they believe might be full of food. Now, he's not exactly at this warehouse. They lost track of him, but they figured that this is as good as an opportunity as any to find food so that they can feed whoever they do find in their travels to take back to Alexandria. And this led to some really cool moments and tense moments, and then some mildly convenient or possibly even dumb ones. I was pretty mixed on this entire subplot with Daryl and Aaron, but for the most part, I favored it. What was awesome about it was that this entire scene with the springing of the trap of the walkers coming out of the of those trucks and just surrounding Daryl and Aaron, and because you like these two characters so much, I, for a split second, thought that was it for them, or at least one of them. Mainly Aaron, because Daryl, man, Daryl dying, it might be even worse than the apocalypse. Alright, might bring the real apocalypse to the earth, because people are going to riot and lose their fucking minds if Daryl were to die. But that scene of them in the car, talking to one another, surrounded by walkers, that was intense, because at any given moment that glass was just going to break, but at the same time they're both looking at each other like, yeah, this might just be it for us. And the performances by both actors were delivered really well, that I almost for a second believed them, but I knew something was going to happen. Something convenient was going to happen. That was Morgan coming in to save them. Now, I'm willing to somewhat give it a pass, because not only is this Morgan coming in to save them, that badass that we saw earlier in the episode, but I like this character so much that even if it was just too convenient for somebody to save him in the nick of time, instead of actually going out there and trying to fight off these walkers by them two, I took it, because I just took that solution because I like these characters too much. Didn't want anything to happen to them. But I'll acknowledge the fact that was just a tad bit too convenient. What was also cool was that triple chain kill by Daryl, where he comes out underneath the truck and then he takes the chain and whips those three heads off those walkers. That was one of the best kills, and they give Daryl all the best kills, but for good reason. Daryl's awesome. But that was definitely one of the highlights of the episode and one of the best kills I've seen on season 5. But with balancing that out, it's also something of somewhat of a dumb moment for Daryl, which is kind of betraying the character. I mean, this whole place kind of had the makings of a trap. I mean, shouldn't you make sure that there's nothing in these trucks? I mean, you've been doing this for so long that you're just gonna open these trucks and hope for food even if they're locked. I think Daryl would have been just a bit smarter than that. I mean, he saw that other truck that was open, and he didn't go for it. So this one, it's locked. I'm going to go ahead and open it with all the confidence in the world. I think we've known Daryl better by now. Now, you know how earlier in the review I stated that some characters may have been weakened by Alexandria, and they weren't as tough as we were expecting them to be because they couldn't go that extra mile to secure safety for themselves and for the people around them? I feel like we got two parallel subplots catering to that idea, with Glenn going out into the woods to track down, forgot his douchebag's name, Nicholas, only for Nicholas to shoot him and possibly kill him, along with also Sasha confronting the priest within his church, hopefully to find some answers to her dilemma, only to be almost being looked down upon by the priest. And before I get to the priest, let's talk about Glenn and Nicholas. I think if Alexandria wouldn't have happened, Glenn possibly would have put Nicholas down. We've seen examples where Glenn has been willing to go that extra mile and take that decision to secure safety for him and for Maggie. I mean, he loves Maggie, so he even stated in this episode he's willing to do anything. Well, he didn't say that, but he stated, "I love you." So we were given that understanding that maybe Glenn would be that person. And like I said, I can't think of any at the top of my head, but we've seen examples of Glenn, or at least heard examples of him saying, "Yes, I'm willing to do this for the safety of the group." So for him to not put Nicholas down who, sure, he cowered at staring down the barrel of a gun, but who knows what he's gonna do next if you're letting him live. And we didn't even see the resolution of this subplot within this episode. We're gonna have to wait until season 6 to see whether or not they're gonna actually make it back all the way to Alexandria. Who knows? Maybe somebody might interfere, somebody from the comics, and keep them from Alexandria and take them to some other place. Who knows? But anyways, I feel like Glenn not putting Nicholas down might have been a bad move. Plus, I mentioned that Morgan and saving Daryl and Aaron from those walkers was a tad bit too convenient. Okay, how are you going to explain Glenn being shot in the arm, escaping those like 2 or 3 walkers that were on top of him? The other parallel was Father Gabriel going out into the woods, willing to commit suicide, only to even be scared to do that. He's not only scared of willing to help other people, but he can't even help himself. So he puts down a walker and somebody else who was getting eaten, and heads back to Alexandria with this like fuck it attitude, like, oh my god, I just don't care anymore, to the point where he doesn't even bother to secure the gate. And I'm like, oh my god, can this character get any more frustrating? Nobody's on this guy's side. And then later when Sasha shows up at his church asking for help, Gabriel's just like, talk to the hand, metaphorically speaking, like, you guys don't deserve it, leading to a confrontation that gave Sasha the upper hand to put this guy down, and just like Glenn, doesn't do it. Now, I don't know if Alexandria was necessarily responsible for her weakening state, but hey, Maggie came in there and helped out too, and she didn't even have the goal to put him down, and instead they join hands and say, okay, let's pray. I thought not only was this too quick of an ending, like, really, you guys are just gonna forget what just happened and join hands and pray for it? I thought that was just a bit too much, and I felt like if any of these subplots would have been left at a cliffhanger, this one should have been it. Either that or kill off Gabriel, because so far nobody's really on his side, and he hasn't done anything redemptive at this point. Now, with all that said and done, let's talk about the climax, which for the most part was really tense and done wonderfully. Because of Gabriel being careless, walkers do in fact get into Alexandria, but I like that they didn't exaggerate and made it like a complete takeover, like, they're all over the place, because even though there's been a surge in walkers, they're not gonna all automatically come to Alexandria and stumble upon it, especially if there's no noise, because Alexandria was pretty quiet at that time. It was nighttime, everybody's indoors or at this meeting discussing Rick's fate, essentially. So walkers are not just going to automatically, at least herds of walkers are not going to automatically go to it. 1, 2, maybe 3, like the ones that Rick comes across to, sure. But this, more importantly, served as a statement for Rick in his benefit to say, look what just happened. If this just happened right now, who knows what can happen in a few months. We need to be ready. We need to take this town and switch it inside out. And I think that was the strongest point of this climax that benefited really well. Because like I said, not only did I like the way this was all edited, jumping back and forth between what was going on with Glenn and what was going on with Maggie, Sasha, and Gabriel in the church, and Rick taking care of these walkers while people are so calmly deciding whether or not he's gonna have to go, that was done really well and edited very well. And then Rick coming in, saying his 2 cents, and demonstrating what change needs to happen with Alexandria, and a change that we hope gets fleshed out better in season 6. I liked it. I liked it an awful lot, and was definitely one of the best points of the episode, only for it to remind us that it's The Walking Dead, so things cannot go just like you plan. They can't, okay? Pete walks in after being, fired up with his confrontation with Carol. He comes in with what people are presuming is Michonne's katana. It looked like a long machete sword type of thing, like a knife, but it didn't look like Michonne's katana. I don't know. Maybe I have to rewatch the episode, but people are assuming that it was Michonne's sword. How did he get the sword? I don't know. I really don't. Maybe he was, I don't know, maybe he was put in the house that Michonne was. Why would they do that? I don't know. Anyways, he comes in, and so he obviously, in a rage, tries to go after Rick. However, this resulted in Reg, Deanna's husband, getting killed, which I saw from a mile away. that scene, and I think everybody guessed this at this point. That scene where he goes up to Maggie after running away from Deanna, trying to talk to her, practically being a lobbyist through this episode, trying to convince people that Rick is not necessarily a bad guy. He just wants everybody to be ready. Reg goes up to her and says, "Hey, I know we need to adapt. I'm gonna try to say all these things in favor of Rick at the meeting," and that's where I'm like, he's dead. he's dead. I don't even read the comics and I already know he's dead. And sure enough, he dies. The way he died, however, was a little weird. I don't know. There was something about the way he was. I don't know. Like the way he's handling the sword just didn't look right to me. Like really, he's gonna cut his throat that way? I understand if he went like that, but it just looked like he went and now he's gurgling in blood. I'm like I don't know. But things escalated rather quickly, and I love this turning point for Deanna. Now actually seeing death in her arms in the form of her husband. That was the breaking point for Deanna, and not only did this make her turn to Rick and be like, "Rick, kill that guy," and Rick therefore kills Pete, but I'm also very interested to see how Deanna acts and reacts to the people around her in season 6. Now, being that she might just be another Rick who has lost everything. She has lost a summable amount. Is that even a word? Anyways, she has lost a reasonable amount to reach that breaking point, to where she is now contradicting her own words from from the last episode, where she's like, "We do not execute people. We don't do this. Do it." All right, this was the turning point for her, and I'm really excited to see where that goes. But then it couldn't stop there. Right when Rick executes Pete, Rick, there's Morgan with Daryl and Aaron, and that's where our episode ends, or mostly. I'll get to that in a second. But I thought this was just a little too much. I'm sorry. I'm in the minority who didn't like Morgan showing up there to witness this. Well, I mean, I'm interested in the drama that it's going to create, and seeing that we've kind of switched roles here. I mean, Rick is now the seemingly crazy one, and Morgan, who was crazy in that episode in season 3, where him and Rick reunited for the first time since season 1. Morgan, I'm sorry, I'm really tired right now. Morgan is now the more sane one, the one who, like he says, is willing to cherish life because it's just so rare these days. So now that we've switched roles, how is this dynamic going to play out in season 6? I'm definitely looking forward to that. So I'm in favor of the consequence that this little unfortunate meetup generated. The unfortunate meetup itself, though, I thought was just a little too forced. Like, you're trying to bring in so many dun 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 moments at the end of this season finale that I was almost expecting a big dun 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 to happen there at that very last shot. So personally, I think they could have saved Morgan's reunion with Rick for the season 6 premiere. I think that could have been saved somehow, because first of all, they got there rather quick. And secondly, I think it was just too much for me. So now, being that almost everything that is part of the movie or television culture has to have an end credit scene, we get an end credit scene of this car that has the words "Wolves Not Far" imprinted on it, which was basically in that same that same area. We also get the man in the poncho who's now Walker walking around, but we get this little thing that says "Wolves Not Far," which we got, I guess, more of a formal introduction to in this episode. We've seen the walkers with the W's written on their heads, but now we got people with W's written on their heads calling themselves the wolves. Spreading this mythology about the wolves while at the same time taking their lives and I don't know, being evil. Now, this also brought to my attention what was kind of a little bit of a disappointment, but nothing too much of a big deal. Something that I'm guessing we're not going to see until season 6, probably not even until halfway through season 6, to be quite honest, because I don't feel like they would reveal this in a season premiere, but more like a cliffhanger of sorts for either the mid-season premiere or even the season 6 premiere exactly 1 year from now. And that's a character from the comics, Negan. I know about Negan enough, but vaguely. I don't, like I said, I haven't read these comics that we're caught up with in the show, but I know some vague details about these characters to know, okay, that's who they are, and that's what kind of role they're going to play in the grand scheme of things. And all I know is that Negan is quite possibly worse than the governor. And so it looks like Negan is going to be saved up for season 6. We got no Negan in the season 5 premiere, but we did get a much more formal introduction to the wolves and how they play, how they're gonna play into them coming to Alexandria, because essentially they're going to pose some kind of threat to Alexandria. Now I know that they're not directly tied to Negan. I think they're part of the same storyline, but they're not associated with one another directly. So being that the wolves are coming to Alexandria, chances are Negan is not far. And if he is, I think we should prepare for the worst in season 6, okay? For the worst, because if Negan is going to become a presence on the show, something else is bound to happen. Something that unfortunately got spoiled for me from the comics, from my best friend. Why did she tell me? I don't know why she told me. I was like, thank you for telling me that. But when it happens, it's going to be an event that people are going to be talking about online, because it's gonna hit. It's gonna hit pretty hard. So yeah, it had a couple of problems for me personally, because I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority who thought of those problems that way. But for the most part, I think this was a very satisfying season 5 finale that hit all the right notes, or at least most of the right notes, and definitely has me looking forward to season 6. And I do think that this last half of season 5 was one of the best moments in the series so far, in terms of momentum and in terms of keeping things interesting and fresh, while at the same time not dragging things out with almost the same template for each episode like we did over there in season 4 with Terminus. Everybody traveling to Terminus without actually ever getting to Terminus until the last episode. I think that this episode had a way better flow and momentum with somewhat of a different setting with Alexandria, and to be honest, I can barely think of anything from the first half of season 5, even though it did have its good bits and scenes and character moments that really kept the story going and kept characters going in terms of their arcs and whatever. I think that this last half of season 5 was one of the best yet. So for that, I give the season finale, Conquer, I didn't mention the title, but it's titled Conquer, a high 8 out of 10. Definitely a satisfying finale. It did have a few chinks here and there, but for the most part, it delivered with really satisfying character moments, both on a technical level, like that sweet chain kill, as well as very awesome moments in terms of how they've been developed, and bringing back a character that we've been missing this whole time, Morgan, in a very natural way. And here's to looking forward to how things are going to be played out in season 6, in terms of how Alexandria is going to be basically taken inside out by turning people to be more like Rick and his group, while at the same time looking out for those wolves within the forest. That was a good analogy there. I gotta take credit for that one. Yeah. So let me know what you guys thought of the season finale for The Walking Dead. What do you think is going to happen in season 6? Do you think Alexandria is doomed to be burned to the ground essentially by the wolves? And do you think Rick and Morgan are going to find some kind of common ground after what Morgan just witnessed his old friend do right before him? And what do you guys think of this companion series, Fear the Walking Dead? We got a little promo during the commercials for this one. I will probably do the same thing I did with Better Call Saul and Agent Carter, where I'll review the first episode, and then if the series gets good enough, maybe I'll do a season 1 review at the end of it, because I don't think I'm going to do an episodic review for Fear the Walking Dead. I'm going to do a review on the first one, and then from there I will just continuously watch it until the end of the season, which I believe is only 6 episodes. What do you guys think is going to happen in Fear the Walking Dead? God, that title. Anyways, what are your expectations for Fear the Walking Dead? Do you think it could be kind of neat, being that this is taking place before the apocalypse? And what do you guys make of it? Plain and simple. Simply put, Rick knows an awful lot. There's a vast ocean of shit out there that you people don't know shit about, and Rick knows of said shit. And then so, God, that was one of the best lines. Just Abraham coming up with some of the best lines. Mother dick. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time with my review of the season 6 premiere in October. Take care.